This event is part of panel series named 15 Panels on July 15. Each panel in this series is designed to include the participation of think tanks, opinion leaders, authors, researchers, and diplomats of a particular country. As the Republic of Turkey Directorate of Communications, we are holding a series of online panels and the causes and consequences of this bloody treason against the people one of our panelists, by the way, dear Dr. Eduard Soler, is not able to participate to our panel today because his coronavirus test came out positive only a few days ago. I wish him good health and I hope he fully recovers soon. Our first panelist is His Excellency Mr. Cihat Erginay, Ambassador of Republic of Turkey to Spain. He has been serving to the Republic of Turkey Minister of Foreign Affairs since 1988. He had served as ambassador to Czechia and Bosnia and Herzegovina prior to the appointment to his current post. Roger Albina is also our panelist today. He is the Director of Mediterranean Regional Policies Department in European Institute of Mediterranean. He served as Secretary General for Foreign and EU Affairs of the Government of Catalonia. He is also an Associate Professor at the Faculty of Economics of the University of Barcelona. Another distinguished panelist we have here today is Associate Professor Aylin Ünver-Noy. She has completed her PhD in Marmara University, European Institute, and has been teaching in Marmara and Johns Hopkins Universities. We also have a panelist from Turkish media. Meryem İlayda Atlas is editorial coordinator at Daily Sabah. She is also a researcher at the prominent Turkish think tank SETA. She served as the chief editor of Lacivert magazine and she wrote columns for several newspapers. She was one of the founding editors of Daily Sabah newspaper. Now I would like to give floor to our ambassador, His Excellency Mr. Cihat Erginay.
Thank you very much. Please allow me to warmly greet you and express my pleasure for being with you, albeit virtually, on the occasion of our panel titled Turkey-EU Relations and its Dynamics on the 4th anniversary of July 15. This event is being held, as you mentioned, within the framework of 15 panels on July 15 program initiated by the Directorate of Communications of the Turkish presidency to review the nature, impact, and repercussions of the heinous coup attempt that we had to face 4 years ago, and commemorate the people's victory against the coup plotters. Therefore, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Directorate of Communications and also to the Director, Professor Fahrettin Altun, for initiating these series of panels. My special thanks go to our esteemed panelists. We have one distinguished expert from a leading think tank in Barcelona, Mr. Roger Albinyana, Director of the Mediterranean Regional Policies and Human Development at the European Institute of the Mediterranean, i.e. MED. And this is a think tank we have very good relations with, and especially our Consul General in Barcelona has frequent contacts with this think tank. So it's a pleasure to have Mr. Albinyana with us today. Unfortunately, Mr. Eduard Soler could not be with us, as you mentioned, and we wish him all the best and a speedy recovery from for his health. At the same time, I wholeheartedly welcome our two panelists from Turkey, Associate Professor Aylin Ünver-Noy, who it's a pleasure for me to meet you for the first time. Of course, I've been following you on the media as well as the social media, but first time a virtual encounter with the professor. And of course, Ms. Meryem İlayda Atlas, who I had the distinct pleasure of participating in a panel last year in Madrid within the INSIPE think tank organization. It was, I think, exactly this time last year. So it's good to see you again and be on a panel with you again. And also a warm welcome to Mr. Ebu Bekir Dursun, and congratulations on your new responsibilities in The Hague, and I wish you all the best. On the outset to our discussion, I would like to outline the importance of this day for the Turkish nation once again. On 15th of July 2016, a clandestine faction led by Fethullah Gülen terrorist organization FETÖ within the Turkish armed forces attempted to stage a coup. This was more than a treacherous plot. It was a terrorist campaign to overthrow the democratically elected government, the president, and the constitutional order of Turkey. It was foiled thanks to the resistance of the Turkish nation in defending the democratic order in the country. We lost 251 of our citizens, whereas more than 2,000 were wounded. And I would like to pay tribute and bow respectfully before those martyrs who sacrificed their lives on this tragic day. This attempted coup left a traumatic mark on the country, and its repercussions are still playing out, both on domestic and international level. We all acknowledge that this extraordinary event has reshaped several aspects of Turkey's foreign policy and has had its effect on the overall Turkey-EU relations. Before I leave the floor to the real experts and the other panelists, I would like to share my views briefly and my observations regarding Turkey's EU full membership bid, with an accent on Turkish-Spanish cooperation within this framework. At the outset, please allow me to line out my personal approach to Turkey's EU membership, or maybe I should say the negotiation process for the time being, or lack of. I have been a diplomat for over 30 years, so I have personally witnessed the timeline of Turkish-EU relations. I have represented my country in EU capitals, and as every Turkish diplomat, I have advocated for the necessity of Turkey's full membership, while always highlighting why the process was flawed, unfair, and doomed to encounter problems if a new approach was not adopted by the EU structures. So just to make clear, I am for Turkey's membership in the European Union. This is also my country's position. I believe that Turkey's position as a European country and as a country that shares the original values of the EU warrants it to be a member. This would be a mutually beneficial result. It would anchor Turkey as an important power in all relevant European institutions and help Turkey in its reform processes. No doubt, Turkey would benefit being in such a structure. Remembering that one of the reasons for the establishment of the European Union was to overcome past conflicts and differences, this is also one of the positive results it would yield. As for the EU, that has recently lost blood as a result of Brexit, Turkey's adhesion to the EU would again make it a competitive economic force, especially in the face of the ascension of other continental actors and forces, and a more relevant foreign policy actor as well. There is no other current candidate country, individually or collectively, that can provide these for the European Union. For Turkey, what is of paramount importance is the negotiation process itself. It is through this process that Turkey prepares itself to align with the standards and acquis of the European Union. This is done through the opening and closing of chapters on various fields, 35 in total, I believe. It is important to note that this is a technical process, or rather, it should be. This is what we were led to believe at the beginning when the negotiation started, and that after the completion of all the chapters, it would be a political decision of both the EU and Turkey as to whether to accept accession. But to our disappointment, we have come to see that the opening and closure of all chapters actually means an opportunity for a political veto by any member of the European Union, which unfortunately has been exercised in order to blackmail Turkey, or in some cases other members as a result of a give and take exercise. So currently the negotiation process with the biggest and oldest candidate country is at a standstill. And ironically, we observe that some EU members are criticizing Turkey on issues for which they have not opened the related chapter. For example, justice. or, for example, foreign policy. So the expectation of Turkey achieving a justice system in accordance with the EU standards and acquis, in the absence of any assistance or leadership on the part of the EU, is self-defeating, is tragicomic, and prejudicial. Despite this, and the absence of any EU assistance, we have embarked upon reforming our justice system, and I can safely say that, in some respects, we have gone beyond the EU acquis. It is also very sad to see the EU constantly complaining about Turkey's assertiveness in many foreign policy issues, simply because it cannot keep up, or it is hostage to the whims of one or more of its members, and therefore it cannot objectively evaluate those issues. Unfortunately, the EU has also ceased to operate some of the dialogue channels that used to exist between Turkey and the European Union, very important ones. Therefore, although I still advocate for my country's membership in the European Union, I must say that I am very disappointed with the double standards and prejudicial actions taken by the European Union. Turkey's membership cannot be at any cost. This is not a negotiation position, it cannot be. We have always negotiated in good faith and in a result-oriented manner. The position of the EU in matters related to the Eastern Mediterranean, Syria, combating terrorism, illegal migration has been disappointing. The EU's non-adherence with the 18 March Agreement, for example, also known as the Migration Agreement, has been a true eye-opener for us. The exclusion of Turkey from the list of countries where the EU would open its borders following the COVID-19 was another recent example of a prejudicial approach. If it weren't for these prejudicial and double standard approaches by the EU, which drains the energy from both sides, to be honest, I truly believe that we could cover a lot of distance in the negotiation process and achieve better dialogue and results, not only in our relationship, but regionally and internationally as well. As for Turkey and Spain, we are two strategic partners, in addition to being allies and friends. As two countries at the either end of the Mediterranean Sea, we have many similarities that bring us close and make it easy to understand each other and cooperate in various areas. Our relationship with Spain is a breath of fresh air compared to the ones we have with the European Union in general. The level of cooperation and the benefits derived from our bilateral relations with Spain is a very good example of what we can actually achieve when working with partners who very well understand what Turkey can offer to the European Union. For example, cooperation within NATO, fight against terrorism, bilateral trade and investments, and allow me to say that Spain and Turkey are at very high levels of bilateral trade. The volume of trade is close to 13 billion euros before the pandemic, which is very high, and we're very good partners in that respect. Tourism and other areas where we cooperate. Therefore, I'm pleased to represent Turkey in a European country which has traditionally supported Turkey's EU bid and did not shy away from this principled approach even when the going got tough. In recent years, a lack of dialogue and mutual trust has left its mark on Turkey-EU relations, as I have outlined. Therefore, it's more important than ever to have friends like Spain in the European Union who can look beyond the short-term impediments, see the big picture, and vouch for a constant constructive dialogue, whose considerable benefits can be reaped both by Turkey and the European Union. After the pandemic, we have more and not less reasons to search for such a dialogue. The discussion regarding the supply chains, new restrictions to mobility, the economic effects and effects on tourism, the pandemic's effects on vulnerable geographies like Africa and groups like migrants and refugees, all make Turkey's input even more valuable. Therefore, achieving progress on difficult topics like migration and the implementation of the 18 March Agreement and update of the customs union is now more urgent than ever. And we trust Spain's continuing positive output on all these issues. And may I say that the former Foreign Minister of Spain, Mr. Borrell, who is now the High Representative for the European Union, responsible for international affairs, has been very proactive in regarding to solving the issues, the problems we have with the European Union, very active, and we enjoy working with him. We look forward to working more with him in the future with a view to resolving all the issues we have, and we trust him very much on these issues. So, as Minister Çavuşoğlu, our foreign minister, has very clearly stated in his latest article published in the Politico just today, and I quote, there is indisputable common ground to build upon. At one level, initiatives like the Conference on the Future of Europe and the reflection process in NATO are useful steps forward. They take us in the right direction to help us adapt to the changing geostrategic outlook while respecting each other as indispensable partners. So let us look ahead and build an inclusive framework to capitalize on the genuine transformative power of Turkey-EU cooperation in our common neighborhood. That might be the right mindset, especially in the troubled waters of the post-pandemic era, close quotes. And I thank you very much, and I apologize if I've taken much of your time. Thank you very much.
I want to thank Ambassador Argonai for his speech. He provided us with a background of EU-Turkey relations, and I would like to give floor to Mr. Albiniana, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dorson, Ambassador, colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here, even if we have to meet virtually in this panel debate on the failed coup attempt of the 15th of July 2016. I would like to start by praising the Turkish authorities for the organization of these open debates. I think it's looking at the relations between the European Union and Turkey with an open mindset. I think it is important, and I think that it's also important that the Turkish authorities promote this kind of exchange of views. To be honest, I am convinced that besides the will to prompt an exercise of public diplomacy in these debates, there is also the will to listen to the European public opinion, as we also have the will to listen to the Turkish public opinion. Of course, if we look back to the core subject of this debate, the failed coup attempt of 15th of July 2016. If we look back to what happened, my impression is that the reactions from many Western capitals at that moment in 2016 were too mild, were too soft. Whereas I believe that any coup d'etat is never the solution to change a political reality. Therefore, I believe that Western capitals should have expressed higher doses of solidarity with the Turkish people back at that moment. Probably since 2013, during the Taksim Park protests, we could see how the EU-Turkey relations started to deteriorate, and also political instability started to mount in Turkey. Something related to the EU-Turkey relations, to the connection, to the trust, broke back in 2013, and this has triggered increasing mistrust on the one hand in EU capitals, and on the other hand in Ankara, which I really regret, because I always advocated stronger relations, cooperation, and eventually integration of Turkey inside the European Union. Yet, one cannot forget that the coup occurred only 4 months after the EU-Turkey statement was forged, like March 2016. Now the ambassador was recalling this agreement, and then the coup July 2016. And this EU-Turkey statement, you can be more critical, you can be less critical with the agreement, but what you cannot dispute is that this EU-Turkey statement actually helped the EU a lot, and actually helped not only the EU project per se, because there was a big crisis back in 2015 and 2016, but it also helped to work out the relations between several EU capitals. So indeed, I believe that the EU and the EU capitals should have reacted in a different way back in 2016, and it was probably a mistake from some of the EU countries not to take a more vowing approach on what happened then. Then, I mean, you asked me to also to comment a little bit on the role of Turkey in the Euro-Mediterranean relations. But before I step into this subject, allow me to say that Turkey has been and continues to be a key regional power due to, of course, historic, demographic, geographic, and economic reasons. It is so from a European perspective, but also from a Mediterranean and an Asian perspective, because it is a country that belongs to different geopolitical spaces, and this is very important for the EU, as the ambassador was recalling. Therefore, I devise a Turkey which is anchored politically in Europe, but which, in a way, acts as a gateway to Asia and the Middle East. It is a little bit like when we from here we have to travel to Middle Eastern countries or to Asian countries. We normally take Turkish Airways, and we take Turkish Airways from Barcelona, from Madrid. We go to Istanbul. By the way, I have not tried the new airport in Istanbul, which I'm sure it's a fantastic infrastructure. And then from there we fly to Central Asia, or we fly to Middle Eastern countries. And this is precisely the role that Turkey could play within the European space. However, in order to devise a Turkey that is politically anchored in Europe, a certain degree of convergence with the EU rule of law needs to exist. And here I'm not talking necessarily about full accession of Turkey into the European Union, not necessarily, even though I have always advocated for the full accession of Turkey into the EU. Now the ambassador was recalling that and emphasizing that the position of Spain has been crystal clear throughout the last 2 decades on this subject. But it is also true that since 2013, as I was recalling, this has not happened. And my question is this only attributable to the Turkish side? Well, I believe it is not. I believe that certain member states of the EU have not lived up to the previous commitments, especially with regards to the accession path, and this is not fair. It is not fair, of course, to the Turkish authorities, but it is not fair primarily to the Turkish people that many decades ago believed that Turkey could become an EU member one day. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that since the year 2010, the addition of, or the sympathy of the Turkish people towards the EU project has actually decreased. And I think that this is wrong, and this is probably a strategic mistake of certain EU countries. I want to differentiate here between the EU, the institutions, and the member states, and within the member states between some and the others, because you know that the position has been substantially different between some states and the others. That being said, I would say that despite what happens with the accession path towards the European Union, and on these 3 scenarios that we envisage, cooperation, conflict, and convergence, and stating that I'm for convergence, and if not cooperation, I would like to finish this first intervention by saying that Turkey has traditionally perceived the Euromed partnership as an EU-driven initiative. And probably this has been partly true. The Euromed partnership has been an EU-driven initiative for many years. Of course, well, Turkey has its own bilateral relations with the Mediterranean Arab countries. It has its own bilateral relations, the accession process with the European Union and the EU countries individually. Turkey is not part of the European Neighborhood policy, simply because it's not a neighbor country; it's an acceding country to the European Union, and this, of course, has weakened the position that Turkey could have within this Euro-Mediterranean partnership. But I believe that there are many different reasons why Turkey should be involved in the Euro-Med partnership. I think it would be a mistake if Turkey simply ignores the Euro-Med partnership or simply believes that the Euro-Med partnership is an Euro-Arab partnership. The Euro-Med partnership goes beyond the nature of the Euro-Arab relations. And in the last years, we have seen some changes there. Not many, unfortunately, but we have seen some changes. For instance, with the launch of the Union for the Mediterranean, which has its headquarters here in Barcelona, in Spain, since 2008. And this has created let's say, an institutional framework in which co-governance between northern and southern Mediterranean countries is more present. Because it is true that before it was more an EU-driven process, but now we have a better and higher involvement of the southern Mediterranean countries. And therefore, I believe that it is important that Turkey is part of this partnership, especially of the multilateral, which is the regional and the sub-regional dynamics that are going on. It is true that we have seen in the last 3 to 4 years new dynamics in the Eastern Mediterranean at sub-regional level. I'm sure that we will be able to discuss that with regards to the Eastern Mediterranean dynamics. But I would like to finish this first intervention by highlighting the importance of having Turkey fully involved in the Euro-Mediterranean relations as the key regional player that is, in fact. Thank you.
Mr. Albiñana, thank you very much for your valuable presentation. And now I would like to give floor to Associate Professor Aylin Ünver.
Thank you for a kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's a pleasure for me to be here with you and with great panelists. And first of all, before starting my presentation, I would like to thank Directorate of Communications for inviting me to this important panel. And I would like to start my presentation taking you back to the night of July 15. What we saw in Turkey on the night of July 15 was reminiscent of a Hollywood movie called Olympus Has Fallen, in which terrorists mounted an air and ground assault to take over the White House. However, what happened on the night of July 15 was not a movie. A fraction within Turkish armed forces, directed by Fethullah terrorist organization FETÖ, attempted a coup d'etat. F-16 fighter jets, military helicopters, were used by pilots loyal to this organization, made strikes against the Turkish parliament, presidency, National Intelligence Service headquarters, and police headquarters, municipality councils. So hundreds of people were killed and thousands were injured during these attacks. This bloody coup attempt was, of course, was not the first attempt in Turkey to interrupt democracy. In the past, Turkey has experienced military takeovers and coup d'etats, but this latest attempt was like nothing experienced in Turkey to date. Last year, I was representing a Valencia-based foundation. I would also like to mention about that because I'm advisory council and also the governing board member of the Mediterranean Citizen Assembly Foundation based in Valencia. And I was representing them at the meeting of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, hosted by the Turkish Grand National Assembly. And so we had the opportunity to see the damage made by strikes of F-16 jets to the parliament on the night of 15. So this bloody coup attempt that I tried to visualize you briefly led to changes in our domestic and foreign policy. After the failed coup attempt, Ankara started to implement security-first oriented domestic and foreign policy approach. Since then, Ankara faced with two challenges. One is to find a delicate balance between liberties and national security, without damaging democratic principles such as the rule of law and personal freedoms. And the second one is to return to the essential values of public administration, particularly neutral competence. This co-attempt reminded us that the importance of neutral competence in public administration, which is the ability to do work of government expertly and do it according to objective standards rather than personal, party, other obligations and loyalties, and how dangerous can be to keep people loyal to FETÖ at the military and state institutions. Following the failed coup attempt, tens of thousands of employees who had infiltrated to state organizations over the last 40 years have been removed from military and government positions. And Turkey, which is the founding member of the Council of Europe, then took the decision to suspend European Convention on Human Rights and implement a 3-month state of emergency in order to eradicate FETÖ from the state institutions. And state of emergency extended several times, and from the people who were thought to have links with FETÖ were arrested and sent to prisons. And then the political tensions between Turkey and the EU mostly derive from the security-first approach of Turkey, which is criticized by the many EU member states, since measures taken by the government were interpreted as a deterioration in the quality of Turkey's democracy and the rule of law. In addition to this, emerging divergence in international threat assessment between Turkey and the EU and became another factor that caused political tensions. Meanwhile, in Turkey, the EU also was perceived as undermining Turkish national security due to its reluctance to help Ankara tackle the threats posed by internal and external terrorism. Some EU member states' reluctance to extradite FETÖ members. Some EU member states' continued support for YPG in Syria, ignoring Turkey's security concerns, were among the topics alienated Turkey from its European allies. Since 2016, Turkey decided to conduct unilateral operations in Syria to neutralize Daesh and YPG terrorists. Some EU member states understood Turkey's legitimate security concerns stemming from Syria, which has a border length 911 kilometers, and whereas some EU member states preferred to support YPG. Moreover, they took the position against Turkey. And even some NATO allies of Turkey withdrew their Patriot missile defense systems that protect Turkish borders. Spain is the only country, I would like to mention that, because it kept the Patriot air defense missiles deployed in 2015 as a part of Turkey's request for NATO assistance for possible attacks from Syria to Turkey. So Turkey is grateful for Spain's decision to keep its Patriot system in Turkey. Both internal events like failed coup attempt, increasing terror attacks from Daesh and PKK in 2015 and 16, and the external developments like the prolonged Syrian war have had negative impact on Turkey's democratization process and have lessened the effectiveness of the EU's transformative power on Turkey. The EU also lost its influence on Turkey as a candidate state owing to lost ground in mutual trust, as the other panel early 1990s. The conditions of EU membership in the past were an important catalyst in Turkey's desecularization process, and also the Europeanization in Turkey led to domestic change. But this process entered a reverse cycle due to the absence of conditions to bring about any domestic change, and the failed coup attempt led to emergence of distrust and problems in which democracy can flourish. After the failing coup attempt and the following measures based on security-first-oriented approach taken by the government became the subject of criticism in the EU capitals, but also an obstacle to upgrade even the customs union between Turkey and the EU. However, this current tense relationship between Turkey and the EU cannot be sustainable. Steps that might revive Turkey-EU relations should be taken. Following the refugee crisis of 2015, as you remember, such steps were taken. and the 2015 refugee flow from Syria indicated us the necessity of cooperation. An egalitarian approach helped both sides eliminate their differences, find commonalities. An upgraded custom union in which Turkey can benefit from free trade agreement with third countries. Now, as you know, that it cannot be possible for Turkey because of the existing agreement, may become a positive incentive, has the potential to change the public towards continuing the democratic reform. Recriminations over challenging issues. At that time, EU and Turkey gave their relations a new frame by agreeing customs union in 1995. An upgraded customs union between Turkey and EU served both interests by increasing trade. And energy, also another factor that might be an important field of cooperation, not cause of risk. Gas has potential to serve as a catalyst for peace in the Eastern Mediterranean if regional and global actors give it a chance. This was actually not an impossible scenario for the region 70 years ago almost. Europe managed to build peace through a cooperation in the coal and steel sectors after the Second World War. Establishment of the European Coal and Steel Community, European Atomic Energy Community were choices consciously made by European leaders of the time to bring peace, stability, and reduce the possibility of future conflicts in the European continent. All the gas discoveries in the Eastern Mediterranean initially increased expectations for cooperation that merely fueled existing tensions, even exacerbated them. Without reaching an agreement on the areas where the claims of exclusive economic zone overlaps, projects exploring extracting gas will not be commercially viable. There are already technical difficulties in terms of carrying the gas through the pipeline due to the depth of the sea. And also the oil and gas prices are at the lowest level. In addition to these ongoing maritime boundary issues and conflicts makes the ISMET projects less attractive for investors due to concerns related to the feasibility, profitability, and sustainability of these hydrocarbon resources. Without reaching a compromise or agreement through regional cooperation, by putting aside political disputes, extracting gas in the region will be costly, unprofitable, and risky. Sum up, it's questionable whether projects in the ISMET fulfills their economic potential and ambition in the absence of Turkey, under the shadow of continuing disputable maritime boundary issues, and without the settlement of Cyprus issue. Manfred Weber, chairman of the European People's Party of the European Parliament, recently is rightly saying that problem between Turkey and Greece and Greek Cypriot administration are not only affecting these countries, but the whole EU. Accepting the Greek Cypriot administration to the EU member state without resolving the Cyprus issue was the biggest mistake the EU did. What we are having today is the result of this wrong decision of the EU. Moreover, it seems that everybody forgets the Greek Cypriots said no to Annan Plan, whereas the Turkish Cypriots accepted the Annan Plan and wanted to be a part of solution in the island. And the accession of Greek Cypriot administration also emerged as another obstacle during the accession negotiations of Turkey with the EU, vetoing dozens of chapters, Ambassador mentioned briefly, including those related to judiciary, fundamental rights, energy, all the complicated issues also criticized by the EU. And the other 8 chapters were frozen by the EU itself due to Turkey's non-implementation of additional protocol extending the EU-Turkish custom union to Cyprus. So accession of Greek Cypriot administration to the EU without resolving the Cyprus issue is a major factor that poisoned and still continue to poison Turkey-EU relations. This securitization of some issues, as I mentioned briefly, and developing with neighborly relations, including normalization of bilateral relations between Turkey and the EU member states, resolving any border disputes between Turkey and the EU member states, were facilitated through Europeanization process. This Europeanization process led to further democratization in Turkey in stimulating legal and political reforms. And EU, as you know, that declared Turkey as a candidate country at the Helsinki summit. And this made the membership ideal an attainable objective for the Turkey, marking a turning point in Turkey-EU relations in general and Turkey's democratization process in particular. However, the speed of reforms has slowed in parallel to increasingly dim perspective of membership after the EU's Turko-skeptic leaders that offered Turkey's privilege or special partnership instead of full membership, vetoing the opening several chapters in Turkey's accession talks. So the relationship between Turkey and EU gradually deteriorated, came to this lowest point. The EU's decision to implement sanctions to Turkey do not resolve problems in the Eastern Mediterranean and do not change the Turkey's position. Egalitarian approach, as I mentioned, along with fair and unbiased policies are necessary to restore trust and develop more aligned foreign policy coordination. As Joseph Borrell stated, that reversing negative trend in EU-Turkey relations to positive is vital. Trust eroded between Turkey and the member states can be restored if both sides understand each other's fears, concerns, and willing to find a middle way to resolve their problems. Yes, as Borrell said, Turkey is an important partner, a candidate country, and a NATO ally. And losing it will be too costly than keeping it as an ally, a candidate country, and a partner. So that's why this negative trend should be turned into the positive one. And COVID-19 pandemic reminded us the importance of solidarity and cooperation between states at the regional and global, when we face with the challenges which does not recognize the borders. Turkey was one of the first countries who heard requests for help of its NATO allies and responded very quickly to their request for help. And Spain was one of them, and Turkey with great pleasure provided the requested help. Global and regional challenges necessitates regional and global response. And global challenges and regional challenges such as refugee crisis, terrorism, pandemic, natural disasters, climate change, energy security cannot be handled by state-centered traditional security understanding. Before 2019 Lisbon Treaty, Turkish representatives and EU Troika had been regularly meeting to discuss foreign policy issues. At that time, Turkish foreign policy was more in line with the common foreign and security policy of the EU. With the blockage of the Greek Cypriot administration, these official meetings were halted. Today's development indicate us that how important to institutionalize Turkey-EU foreign policy coordination and cooperation in the Mediterranean. From refugee issue to energy security, maritime boundary issues, on several issues, foreign policy coordination and cooperation is vital, not just for Turkey and its relations with the EU, for the entire region's stability, peace, and prosperity. So more alignment and less contentious between Turkey and the EU foreign policy and security policy is possible as long as the accession talks based on credible membership perspective that continues by opening and closing the CFSP and foreign policy and security policy chapter, fundamental rights chapter, energy chapter. The establishment of continuous dialogue through regular meetings between Turkish representatives and the EU representatives on these issues and energy cooperation, and also along with upgrading the customs union, these are the starting point to develop such relationship that can facilitate finding the commonalities. Thank you.
Associate Professor Aylin Ünvernoğlu, thank you very much for visualizing what happened on 15 July and in its aftermath, and also for the insights on Turkey-EU relations. Thank you very much. Now I would like to give floor to Meryem İlayda Atlas for her speech.
You can hear me now. Thank you very much, His Excellency, Sir Ambassador Cihat Erginsay, and distinguished guests. And also thank you very much for Communication Directorate for their invitation. It's a great honor for me to be here to talk in this panel. And I'm very sorry for the losses of Spain in COVID-19 process. And I hope that all of us would again organize a panel face-to-face in post-pandemic world. And today I'm going to talk about specifically focusing on July 15, but it is not free from the EU-Turkey relations. First of all, like Mr. Ambassador, I am for Turkey for EU. However, Turkey-EU relations are not only agreements, trade relations, custom unions, or energy relations. I am a researcher in CETA, a think tank organization, and I am working on Russia and Eastern Mediterranean energy relations. But today I'm going to talk about women in a very feminist perspective, because when we are talking about some issues, the big issues in international relations, economy, and energy, these issues on the table are going very well, but in the practice, they are stuck in some identity issues. They are stuck in European values and this and that, incompatibility of Islam and democracy, incompatibility of Turkey's culture and this and that. So there is one example, as Mr. Albignana mentioned, how European states were failed to respond effectively on July 15. I want to also make reference to how the Western media failed to respect in July 15 in general, and also to give a place to the Muslim women, Turkish Muslim women, becoming an active role in July 15, and how they are failed to see that. And I want to use the Foucault's visibility and invisibility approach in order to explain this. As Professor Noye very well explained the July 15, how it has happened, so I'm not going to repeat it again. We have losses. I lost 3 of my friends, and we have civilians died, and also we have more than 2,000 people wounded in industries defending their democracy. I can say very proudly that Turkish society, with all of its segments, has an intention of anti-coup data. They always voted for civilian governments, despite many desires, in thousands of desires of intervening the politics and democracy. However, at the end of the day, society with all of its segments, rights and left, they are coming to the ballot box politics. So this is, they will see that these coup d'etats are not outcome of anything, they are not results, but they are creating results for some purposes. So this is, I would say that Turkish society is very well aware of it. These coup d'etats are not the results of something or bad going, but they want to create some results for the society. Well, when we are talking about Turkish democracy, we never talk about the strength of the people, solidarity, or their this kind of will to stay away from tutelage politics. But we always keep about deficits, manipulated issues, some wrongdoings in Turkish societies, how we fail to do this, how we fail to enter to the European politics and this and that. I wouldn't say that there is not problems. We are heaven of democracy, but when I see that regarding the EU and Turkey relations, especially on these democratic and value-based issues, there is a checklist and a criteria chart. Only issues accepted as legitimate, some issues are accepted as legitimate issues to speak and to follow, and only development and achievement in these issues are accepted as development and achievement. Some other issues, very important issues regarding majority of the population, are never seen, are never become visible. This is one of them is the Turkish women activism, which is completely invisible when it is coming from especially conservative segments of the society. This is completely invisible in the eyes of the European outlets. So when we talk about women empowerment, when we talk about women's struggle, when there is a sort of agenda, and this agenda has a set of rules, and if the example is not appropriate to this agenda rules, then it is not seen. So that is to say, conservative women's agency activism, their decades-long lust for being a part of democratic process, their fight for being active in politics, become visible in the society, never ever heard or seen by the Western media outlets. In contrast, they always portrayed as radical elements or just having fake consciousness, or like, you know, they are doing what they were told to do. So so we understand, as far as I understand, the concept of freedom for women in this part of the world should you know, should come with a context, in the European context, in a secular context, in a framed context. Well, if you turn back to July 15 night, and it is a relation to this context, women were everywhere on the streets on that night. Women died, women wounded, and they were every part of Turkey. Most of them are coming from lower class families. Most of them are working. Most of them are housewives. So there is a cohesion, and they were representing the Turkish society. However, right after the July 15 coup attempt, an article in USA Today mentioned that there were no women in the streets. There were only women with beards looking like Daesh, and they were abusing secular-looking women, so they were so much afraid. So this is the first reaction of the Western media reacting. So this was completely not true, nonsense, because, you know, randomly you can go and check any video and you will see there women. And after that night in the meetings, democracy meetings, in the following nights, you can see many women in the streets. But maybe because of their representation power, they were completely invisible in the eyes of the European. So women, for weeks after the July 15, we have never seen a single article or mention about positively mentioning women in the resistance in the streets. Later on it came, after 1-2 months, because they have to recorrect themselves, because whatever they thought right after the coup d'etat was, most of them were wrong and totally fabricated. They were not true. They were based on biased journalism, what they keep doing in Turkey. So in the Western media outlets, in European media outlets, an army of press is reporting from Istanbul at that time, but there were no women, Muslim women, visible in their reports. They never talking about this auntie did this in the street, and that there were thousands of stories at the same time in Turkish media. And I know these foreign reporters here in Istanbul, and I know them. Most of them are my friends, and most of them can read Turkish very well as well. So it's impossible for them to not known about these stories. 6 days after the coup, independent newspaper published an article titled as, "They looked at me as if I was a demon. Fear and uncertainty among Istanbul citizens in wake of attempted coup." So in this article, some secular women were expressing their fear for the secular women is the mention of the paper, not me. Fear of vandalism and potential violence in the streets, and it is reported as a core issue. At that time, it has never become an issue in the media in Turkey, and it is one of the biggest issues, the post-coup trauma in Turkey. Yes, I understand this concern to protect some values and this and that, but there has never one single issue as vandalism or potential violence against women because somebody is protesting against coup d'etat in this period. So there is a habit of the European media outlets to understand every kind of issue in this way. This is very hysterical, actually, for me as a journalist. And also, if you follow up the stories, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, nobody is making such a claim. So this is only a heat of the moment. We cannot see this kind of stories 6 months after, yes, at that night, somebody told me this and that. This is not because of it, because this has not happened in this way. This is artificial, fabricated facts. and actually not part of the issues. So anytime when it is regarded some kind of activism in Turkey, it is coming to, it is just a trend in Western journalism. Looking any kind of event from the perspective of secular women will be attacked by Islamist groups, and violence could take place in the streets because this is Middle East. So if you do not leave this, if Europeans do not leave this kind of perspective, it is becoming so hard to understand each other, and it is becoming so hard to understand and create a mutual understanding. Another story, another report mentioned in Independent, there are multiple examples of that. By the way, some violent groups at that night came and told their women in a secular, secular looking, 30 years old women, and they shout her, as if you dress in this way, you'll deserve to die. And it is claimed in the paper that these people were both carrying Daesh and Turkish flags. And also, this is very much connected with the idea in 2015's concept based on Syrian war to make a perception that Turkey is helping to Daesh in Syria. This is a continuity of this understanding. And now, 4 years after, I looked very closely that there is not such a claim by anybody. So some fake figures, you are just referring to someone, this and that told me this. There is no video for these reports, no evidence. Women do not have a name or surname, of course, reports, they don't have to use it. But someone says, some violent man came and said this and that. And the very unfortunate part for me is that there is a considerable public opinion in the West to believe that. This is the very unfortunate part. So it is making us our work too much harder while we're talking about all of these great issues. But when it is coming to understand what is happening in Turkey, what is the public opinion in Turkey, there is also a false consciousness about what is really happening in Turkey. This is one of the most important things for me. There is a narrative, very negative narrative, as you mentioned in your presentation, and this narration, the narrative is becoming turning a factual in a factual framework, but biased journalism, and it is blocking the mutual understanding. Turkish people on July 15 night flowed into the streets. Now, at that time, is seen as angry and radical masses, some man with birds, Daesh looking, and this and that. And also, of course, an indispensable part of this kind of man looking, flowing into the street, women victimization should have followed. So this is the presumption of the Western media, with many other examples that I would say talking about in BBC, in CNN, in other European media, because I was in Paris at that night, and I could only leave Paris after 10 days. I was going to a school. After 2-3 days, everybody was, believing in that way. I mean, my colleagues and my tutors in Darso, there is strong contemplation in the news that a group like that would possibly attack secular women. This imaginary narrative is quickly turning to mainstream, and quickly turning about reporting on Turkey. Another report is referring to a girl going to swimming pool and playing music in that night, and they are very much afraid of what is happening in July 15 in the streets, while some other children supporting July 15 in the same neighborhood, going to mosque and reciting Quran. From 2020, I would say someone living in Istanbul, this kind of neighborhood, someone going to mosque and someone going to swimming pool, is a very imaginary neighborhood. It never existed because families are very much suspicious about many things, and also there is not enough swimming pool for every neighborhood in Istanbul as well. So this kind of dichotomy is maybe desirable for these media reporters. However, this kind of obvious division between, secular, modern, religious, and this and that, is now creating a language barrier for between EU and Turkey to speak. After 3 days after the coup d'etat attempt, BBC spoke with some people. There's a report in BBC, and it says that I spoke some women, but these women are not supporters of July 15. In contrast, they say that we want to leave the country. This place is just turned into a mess. It's now not a livable country, and this and that. And one of them is saying that I was so afraid in July 15 night. It's normal because everybody was afraid. Our families were afraid because fighter jets were flying in the sky. So, but her fear was that because Sharia would come, and it can be end up in democracy and secularism. And if my environment is full of these people with Middle Ages mentality, I have to take a caution for myself. I put some headscarf and long skirt into my car. This is completely wrong. This is a lie. And BBC wrote this after 3 days. You can easily find this report in the in internet. So this is completely lying about Turkey and Turkish democracy as it is going to somewhere. So we can multiple the examples, but I will cut it here because I want to cut the long story short and say that why women have secular concerns. I do respect women with secular concerns, but why these concerns are quite and easily visible in the Western media, but some other women who are not, secular looking, but opposing the coup d'etat, resisting in the street, becoming visible public actors, never properly visible in the Western media. This is the biggest question. And I want to mention Foucault here. Visibility and invisibility is completely related with politics. This is not an identity issue. This is not personal choice. This is a political issue. And of course, personal is political, by the way, but this is a political answer. One of the answers for me, why these women are very invisible in the media, July 15 is happened as a popular resistance, a will to protect the democracy. It happened in a country in Turkey where the actors does not look like Westerners. So the resemblance here is the key word. So if you want to create an empathy, it is easier for you to create to put an empathy with someone resembling you. If you do not look like European, so you may easily look like or treated like a Daesh supporter or violent. So this is one of the mistakes that how the European mentality is shaped today. This understanding would easily delete the visible memory of the women actors in July 15 because they do not look like European and they are seen as patriarchal members of a patriarchal society, or they are collaborators of the system, or they are just some herd-like behaviors, following their charismatic leader and creating fake consciousness. And also this word of fake consciousness, while it is completely in Eastern European media, it is also told for these women or generally people resisting. They have a fake consciousness. I read this in the Western media update. For the following days of the July 15 and the week, we could not see one single positive story in the Western media outlets. A positive image of the women outside who died and wounded, who voiced for their democratic rights. There were thousands of pictures for these women. They are very accessible, but not one single story, picture, reporting, article about them in the mainstream media outlets. Because there's a strange, weird invisibility of the Muslim women in the eyes of the Europeans, not in Turkey, but also in migrant communities. They are these Muslim women in Europe also criticize being invisible in public life, being too much domestic, being a part of patriarchal or loyal, actors of patriarchal society. However, when they go outside, they want to become agency, they want to become actors, but in their Muslim identity, not changing their lifestyle, they are ignored with a very strange invisibility. Unfortunately, when or if they are visible in the Muslim women identity, they become subjects of a very Orientalist attitude, and they are instrumentalized in very Orientalistic approach. This has also happened in July 15. While some women's stories came out in the Turkish media, BBC made an interview with one of the actors of the resistance. She was driving a truck without a driving license. And her husband didn't let her go to drive this truck, but she was driving this truck without her, the permission of her husband. So if this is not women activism, what is women activism? So she drives her truck to Taksim, and how BBC portrayed this woman is with her, religious attire, with her culture of piety, and underlining her daily life and practices as radical elements. I have never read about a story. I also met her in person. She's a very active woman. She's organizing the neighborhood. She's bringing them to the square where they are resisting and protesting. But this is not mentioned in the article. What is mentioned, the general image of the article, is some, radical elements because of her attire and because of her culture of piety. She's seen as someone radical. She's not seen as a women actor. July 15 was a shameful night in Turkish history, because the Gülenist terror group, who were active in Turkish army, had did something. They were fight over the civilians that would never Turkish army would do. And women and men poured in the streets and resisted against the coup. And this is the story. But however, this is never seen as civilians fighting for democracy, women resisting for democracy. Because if a woman fighting for democracy, if a woman resisting for their rights and will, it will not be wearing a headscarf, would not a religious garment, a man will not be with a bird. And these can only be radical elements threatening secular lifestyles, threatening threats for democracy, creating incompatibility for modern societies. So if European media wants to praise someone, women activism from the Middle East, so these women should carrying a gun, and they have to be members of YPG or PKK terror groups. Only heavily armed women of YPG and PKK will be seen as women activists by Western media, but not Turkan Türkmen, who died on the night of July 15, 52 years old housewife, and she died because she cannot stand staying at home at that night while the terror wants to haunt the Turkish society. She was 52. She was, in a religious attire. She was a housewife, and it is not a good not a good representation for a women fighter. Another example, Yıldız Gürsoy. She was 42 years old. She's coming from a very low classes, and she's a tea maker. Died at that night, and from coming lower segments of the society, 52 years old, 42 years old, housewife, ordinary workers, does not with the young, beautiful fighter images to sell their story. This is the second point, actually. It is even, these women are even not marketable, as it happened in the YPG branches, YPJ women branches, young, beautiful girls carrying guns and fighting for their freedom. It is obvious that I said before, empathy ability of the Western society is very much limited with the resemblance, with their own political concerns and national interests. So while they are talking about European values, they are talking about their resemblance, their political concerns, their national interests. If you look like European, if you fight against your state, if you deny your past, then you're welcome even if you carry a gun. It doesn't matter. If you peacefully, with bare hands, stop tanks, these women were not carrying guns, who died in July 15. If you want to just say peacefully, I want to keep my democracy, then you are radical, you are Islamist, you are violent, you are obeying patriarchal rule, and as I said, you are following your charismatic ruler's instructions, and you have a fake consciousness in your mind. So this is very sorry, actually, and I think we need to put this into table within the context of Islamophobia, and also we have to enlarge this from cultural studies to EU studies. This will be a very new dimension because the agreements are agreements. Turkey and EU relations are historical relations, and as we know that custom unions and many other relations and trade relations are very good. But we could not, and each and every time we are facing this kind of identity politics, and we are failing, we all failing with all senses. And also I would want to add one last point. These women, as I mentioned, 52-year-old housewife, 42-years-old tea maker, they are 60% of the Turkish society. We have to accept that they are the core essence of the Turkish society, and they would never find their place in the narrative of the mainstream media. And a criticism for Turkey, they are not found in not only in Europe, but they could not find a place in the mainstream narrative in Turkey as well. To be fair, they are also not seen as a model family member in a Turkish ad, Turkish TV, Turkish sitcom. But families are these, and these are the people, our people. But the images are they will never they never be modeled for women. My last word is that when we are talking about women issues, they are seen as the subject of the cultural studies and feminism or sociology. They are not actually. Women going outside and fighting for their democracy, but at the same time not seen as marketable. This is the very, very problem of the international relations, politics, and other branches, because we understand the society in a whole dimension, with all of its dimension. We need to maybe, in order to stop this constantly accusative language for Turkish society, we need to ask what is mainstream, and who is this who defined this mainstream, and why this mainstream is living for. Then we can maybe create a better understanding for mutual talks for economy, for politics, and this and that will not stuck on value-based concerns. Thank you.
Meryem İlayda Atlas, thank you very much for sharing with us your perspective on July 15 and enlightening us on a beautiful panel. I want to thank you all our panelists for their contributions. Have a good day.